empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to Scoop World Order. We are live. It is Wednesday night. The Buckeyes are coming down the stretch of winter conditioning. We got about 2 weeks from today, actually, that the spring ball will kick off for the Bucks. They'll be in no pads for the first 3 practices, and then they are grinding away, trying to win spots in pads. So yeah, a lot to talk about. We're going to kind of project who has made some jumps, who is doing some stuff now in winter that they probably won't do stuff in spring in terms of injury recovery and that type of thing. And who's got a lot on the line this spring ball. This is a big spring for a lot of guys. A lot of these guys are going into year 3, year 4, haven't played much or haven't played at all. And with the transfer portal looming and guys moving the way they do, these spots are not sacred anymore. They're not saved. There's no sacred cows anymore because guys that don't contribute are asked to move on, and that's how modern college football works. So we're going to get into that a little bit, and we'll take your questions as well. So with that being said, as always, we're thankful. We're very grateful for you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Bring that heat. You guys always are bringing some great questions. Appreciate you, Dave, Yakov, Daniel. You guys are in here nice and early. Sue should be here soon. Appreciate you. What's up, Real Browns fan 32? Again, we love working with you guys. So get those questions popping. But, if you enjoy this content, please click like and subscribe. Those things always help us in a major way. We really appreciate you guys doing that. Spread the good word because, again, we're growing like crazy, and it's all thanks to you. That being said, going to bring in my good friend, Nevada. Buck. Nevada, how are you tonight?
Doing great. 2 weeks to the opening of spring football. Probably one of the most consequential spring footballs in my memory at Ohio State. And things are cooking. So very, very excited. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I think that anytime there's a quarterback derby and there isn't a huge favorite, I think it's always a million times more interesting than when you have a set guy at quarterback. Just because the quarterback is so overpowered in football and especially college football that the race between Devin Brown and Kyle McCord will have far-reaching consequences because. If there's a clear winner, well, the backups stick around. We don't know. That's one of the things that I'm sure Ryan will try to play it close to the vest. They're not going to name a starter. It'll be just like Haskins and Burrow. But, these kids want to play. They're both talented, and it's going to be super, super exciting. Nevada, what are you excited about this quarterback derby compared to ones in the past? Is this one do you believe it's truly open, or do you believe that Kyle McCord has a decent lead? What are your thoughts as we get about 2 weeks out from spring ball?
Well, I think this is going to kind of define where Ohio State is and where Ryan Day's head at going forward, because I think this is kind of a contrast between a more stationary quarterback and a quarterback who can move a little bit with like Devin Brown. So I think for Ryan Day, we're going to find out. He unleashed C.J. Stroud against Georgia. Finally, dictated that he run, allowed him to run. Yielded some big results. Almost pulled off the big upset. Almost won the national championship with it. And I think what I'm going to be watching, you won't see it as much in the spring because you're going to go non-contact and wrap the guys in bubble wrap. But who he goes with a lot is going to say a lot about what type of quarterback is Ryan Day going to be recruiting going forward, and what type of offense is Ohio State going to be running going forward. So I think this has ramifications that go beyond just this quarterback derby, and looking forward to seeing how it shakes out.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are really counting on Kyle McCord winning this thing. I think that obviously the chemistry with Marvin Harrison Jr. Was built in through high school. That's something that, a lot of people I think are going to give Kyle a bit of an edge. I love Devin Brown. I think that he's a guy that's super talented. I've had people that I really trust in the building tell me that he's the X Factor guy. He's the guy that has a higher ceiling than Kyle McCord. So, but it all comes down to who can distribute the ball to the playmakers. Because in this offense, with the talent coming back, with the scheme, with the ability for these guys to get open, it isn't crazy difficult to play, in this offense when you've got such great receivers. You're gonna have a good O-line, best running back room I think we've ever had in the history of Ohio State, and really as strong of a tight end room as I've seen with Cade and Joe Royer, Jelani Thurman playing as a freshman, G. Scott if he can stick. So it's going to be a really interesting deal to see how how these guys work. I think the biggest thing is when you're in a competition is you just want to kind of do, stay within the offense, do your thing, don't do anything stupid. Which sometimes, when you're in a competition, you want to push and kind of come out of the framework of the offense. But the way the offense is designed, if you can just get the ball to these guys, you're going to put up massive stats and have a huge year. Nevada, I mentioned Marvin Harrison Jr. He's going to be out for spring. There's going to be a ton of receivers out, which is something that I think is actually a huge benefit for Ohio State. That Marvin will be held out most of spring. I mean, he's healthy, completely healthy. Emeka's going to miss all of spring. Julian's going to miss all of spring. Guys like Jaden Ballard, some of these guys they're going into year 2. Then you got these 3 tremendous freshmen that enrolled early. What freshman receivers, Nevada, are you looking to see step up? Because, I mean, I think the first snap of spring, your opening wide receivers are going to be Xavier Johnson, Jaden Ballard, and then question mark?
Yeah, no, I think it's a question on all of our minds. We've talked a little bit about it, dropped a nugget about how Carnell Tate has really, really stepped up, come to camp ready to play, and does not look like a freshman at all. He's an alpha dog, leading the way, in the weight room, just kind of the way he carries himself. And yeah, I'm really expecting big things out of Carnell Tate. The other wide receivers, like I said, for last year, Jaden Ballard had a great bowl prep. I thought that he would be consequential in the game against Georgia, and he didn't end up getting a snap. So it shows how much I know. But no, I think the freshman wide receivers, the freshmen from last year wide receivers, some of the sophomores from 2 years ago, look, it's go time because, like you said, not everybody, but most of the wide receiver yards that are returning are out. This is a chance for you to go in spring. This is a chance for you to do what you can do. And if I had to pick 2 guys, I'm going with Ballard and Tate. Just because those are kind of the chalk. Those are the guys that I've heard the most about. Those are the guys that people are the most excited about at the Woody Hayes. But I want to go back to an earlier topic. We were talking about quarterback controversies or quarterback derbies, competitions, and you had the benefit of being in the midst of one of the great quarterback derbies of all time, the Justin Zwick, Troy Smith one. And I'm just wondering, again, I don't want to go back in the Wayback Machine, and I don't want to bore everybody who starts driving needles into their eyes, listen to Mr. Barton talk about the old days. But was there a moment, I know we all know how it turned out, and we all know Troy was the guy. But was there a moment in that early on where you knew that Troy Smith was the guy before everybody, because for me as a fan, it was that Michigan game in 2004 where he just came out and just, started, just balling. But obviously it was, something had to have happened before that. Was there something before that you saw, or was it as a surprise to you as it was to everybody else?
Well, I thought Troy was different when we were freshmen in 2003. We used to do this thing called the rehearsal scrimmage. So we used to do what's called the Jersey scrimmage, like the 3rd week of camp, and it was the heaviest scrimmage. I mean, it was a long, like a 120 play scrimmage, 3 groups. I mean, it was kind of the breaking point of camp. Like after that, you got to move out of the hotel, but it was like a game basically. Everybody basically played about 40 snaps, 50 snaps, so it was a pretty heavy scrimmage. The following week, which was the week before we opened against Washington, we did what they called the rehearsal scrimmage. And this is something that Tressel did. He didn't do it every year, because I don't remember him doing it the last 2 years, but it basically was like all of the starters are on one team. And then like, it'd be like if the varsity played versus the JV in high school game, so imagine your high school team. So, the varsity was like Will Smith, Darian Scott, Robert Reynolds, Will Allen, Gamble, all those guys. And then offense, it was the first team offense where it was Shane Olivier and Krenzel and all those guys. And we had Troy at quarterback rotating with Justin. And like with Troy, we were actually able to move the ball a little bit, which was our line was terrible because we're all young. I was a freshman playing left tackle against Will and Darian and those guys. So obviously like that's not going to work. But with Troy's creativity and his legs, like we actually moved the ball a little bit. And that was something that me and David Patterson talked about that, because it was like, he had kind of everything against him, because he had, bad wide receivers, bad O-line, bad running backs, and we still moved the ball, which was like it was just a miracle. So, when you actually put him with good players, like a more advanced offensive line, then you add good receivers and then good running backs, all of a sudden, it really elevates everything. So that was that was different because again, like I always say, a quarterback that can move and scramble is kryptonite for even a great defense. So Troy had that on full display. He'd get out of the pocket, get out of sex. I don't think he was live, but Tress used to make the young quarterbacks be live in scrimmages. So if the O line, if the O tackle misses, man, quarterback's getting killed. So that was a moment where I was like, wow, this guy's like, I mean, he's really good. Like he's not just like some whatever. So, but that was something where it was always a good evaluation as to where you're really at. Because normally in camp or spring ball, if you're like a freshman, like if you're like Luke Montgomery and you're playing tackle, you're going to be going against like a third string defensive end. You're not going to be going against, JT Tuimoloau. JT is going to go against Josh Fryer and he's going to go against Zen Mikulski. He's going to go against the first team guys. So, when you're a freshman, you usually go against another freshman. If there's a freshman D end or a redshirt freshman D end, that's kind of how they match up. But then all of a sudden, when you're going against the top dogs, like you're going against Will Smith, then that's a whole different ball of wax than going against your freshman class. Because they don't generally mix it too much early just because they want to see, they don't want to kill your confidence right away by putting you against, Chris Gamble if you're a wide receiver or Michael Jenkins if you're a cornerback and you just get roasted. But, if you show and prove, then you get that opportunity. But in the rehearsal scrimmage, there was no hiding. I mean, and it was full speed, full go. It wasn't like it was a scout team thing. It was like literally a real scrimmage. And, it was probably about 25, 30 plays against like the best defense in the country that year. And Troy moved it. And that was something that you always remembered. And then, Troy, obviously, I think that next spring in 04 during the during the spring game, I think Troy was non-contact and so was Zwick. And I think Troy actually took the non-contact jersey off because he acted like it was screwing him. Because he wanted to be able to run, because obviously that's like, if you can run and scramble and move the chains, and that's a huge part of your ability in a quarterback competition. Like the way Devin can run, I don't, I mean, obviously you don't want to get killed, you don't want to get your head taken off by a defensive end, but at the same time, if you're a great runner and you have legit speed, like being non-contact really hurts you in these situations. So, that was a little, that was kind of long, but that was kind of the thing where, when you're in that rehearsal scrimmage, that's where you really see like who the players are. And Troy was a player right away.
Yeah, but I always wondered about that because, like I said, I talk to players just like you do. I talk to parents just like you do. And, I hear that kind of stuff about Devin Brown, how he's a dude and how he's a leader and how he's kind of got that swagger. And I'm really looking forward to seeing it on the field. I think he's going to be something special, and if McCord beats him out, McCord's going to have to be awful good to do it, and that's just all to the benefit of Ohio State.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is a hilarious question, David. I believe I'm 38 this year, so I mean, not only did I not have eligibility, but I'm not even sure I have ability anymore. So, but I appreciate that compliment. I think Sorgi was the guy who did Rob Reynolds strangle? Turbo.
Allegedly.
I remember. Allegedly. Rob Reynolds is nicknamed Turbo, and me and him got in fights probably every day at practice. But I love Turbo. He's a good dude, a little crazy, a lot crazy. And this is kind of how he rolled. But yeah, he was a different cat. Nevada. I'm excited to see Devin Brown. I'm excited to see, one of the things that's going to be, I think, good for this quarterback competition is the fact that, all the wide receivers are kind of the same. As in, it's not like the day that you get Marvin and Emeka, and you get to run with the ones, like you have like the Cadillac because you have the two best receivers in the country. And then the guy who's with the twos has, freshmen and guys that aren't quite as talented as Marvin and Emeka. There's nothing wrong with that. Those guys are two of the most talented guys we've ever had. But, I just can't see the rotation of wide receiver number 1 through wide receiver number 8. Like, I don't think that there's that big of a gap, but right there. So I think that'll be really interesting because I think that these guys are gonna have to figure out their chemistry with these guys. I'm sure they've been throwing it to Woody Hayes with these guys, but you're only as good as your receivers when you play quarterback. And if you've got, Marvin and Emeka, like you're going to be really good because those guys get really open. And if they're not open, they're probably going to catch it over top of somebody. So I think that's actually going to benefit the quarterbacks because, if they can move the ball and be proficient with, our non All-American receivers, then wait till those guys get back. It's going to be really scary to watch them work. Plus, like, I don't know, Cade will do. Cade probably won't do much this spring just because he's beat up, and plus, he's old. Like, I mean, he's a fifth-year guy. He doesn't really need to go through spring. But Joe Royer needs every rep he can get. Jelani does. G. Scott needs every rep he can get at tight end. So it'll be interesting to see how they feature those guys. Nevada. This is a great question. Do you miss 6 a.m. workouts? 6 a.m. workouts are literally the worst time of the entire year, just because the hardest part about 6 a.m. workouts when you play football at Ohio State is the fact that I never could get good sleep because you always have all this anxiety that you're going to sleep through your alarm. And you got to remember, I played before iPhone, so I didn't have I had like the old school alarm clock that would beep and you'd freak out that the power would go out or whatever. Like I always had like this fear that I was going to be late to a workout and get gutted for like the next week. So, I hated 6 a.m. workouts. I never felt like I could get good sleep the night before. I'd wake up at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., then finally be 5 a.m. and I'd actually have to get up for real. And it was just the worst. Does that surprise you, Nevada, that I hated 6 a.m. workouts?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, I have kids that are competitive athletes right now, and I have one of my kids has to be on the ice, and they have to be on the ice at 5:30 in the morning, and so but with getting the gear on, that you add 30 minutes before that, and then you got to get to the rink before that, and so yeah, it's I don't envy any of you guys that did that, but you guys are younger because when I played, we actually had 3-a-days. And coaches love to do that stuff. And the whole, remember the Titans thing about water makes you weak. My coach would actually say that. He actually did say that water made you weak, and you can't drink water when it was like 107 degrees out there, so people are passing out. So I think it's a kinder, gentler football now, and I think my coaches would be put in jail for child abuse for sure.
What's funny is I did consider coming back to Stark County. I love Columbus. I got my first job in Columbus. The question was, did you ever consider coming back to Canton, Stark County? I did. I saw a lot of family up there, but my jobs were just down here. All my offers were, so I ended up staying in Columbus. But yeah, I watched a really good E60 on the 1972 Dolphins, obviously the only undefeated team in history, and Shula had those guys do their entire training camp with no water on the field. And as a guy that practiced for Miami in September, those guys, my level of what I think of that team after they went through a camp with Shula with no water, I mean, that's unbelievable. I mean, he had them running like 2 miles a day, every day, no water. Then they'd practice, no water. I mean, I was like, it was like, and they were literally sending guys to the hospital, like in droves, like ambulances, because guys were getting heat stroke. Because again, like, you guys that live in South Florida, in September, it sucks walking from the car to inside the supermarket. But when you're actually like practicing in heat and pads, it is about as miserable as it could ever be. So, but yeah, all right, we got to go to the offensive line. We're getting a bunch of O-line questions. Nevada, how are you feeling about the O-line today, 2 weeks out from spring ball?
I'm excited. I think it's going to be a great O-line. I really do. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, O-line's a position, we've said this many times, but it's just a position where you don't get reps until you get reps. People forget that guys like Corey Linsley did not start a game until his 4th year in the program. 4th year in the program, did not start a game. And turned out to be the highest paid center in the history of the NFL. So you can't gauge these guys solely on that. But even if we do gauge it solely on that, we've got 4 guys returning that have started games at Ohio State and 1 guy started games elsewhere. So we've got starting experience, we've got depth, we've got young guys. The 3 incoming freshmen even all reported in great shape, and I'm excited to see them as well. So now I'm excited to see the offensive line. I'm excited to see the combinations. And that will be one of the great stories of spring football as well, as just watching the combinations up front and seeing what clicks.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who settles in at tackle. Obviously, people are obsessed with our tackles right now. I can't imagine Luke doesn't start there just because of his feet. I had a guy that say he's NFL draft pick a tackle already who's seen him. And it was a guy that has NFL experience that said that. So it wasn't just some random guy. And then, I think Josh will be in at center. Austin Sauerveld, guard, obviously. It'd be interesting to see what they do with Tigra, because Tigra's a guy who's really gotten into good shape. He's lost a lot of the fat that he had. He's really a solid kid. Does he have the feet to play tackle? That's the question. Obviously, if you have arm length and feet are about the two most important things you can have, but your feet are kind of 90% of the battle to playing offensive tackle. And then, the big wild card in spring football is we could have all these great rotations and say, okay, the first day it's going to be Zen, and then it's going to be Donnie, and then it's going to be Carson Hinsman at center, and then it's going to be Matt Jones at right guard, and then it's going to be, Josh Fryer at right tackle, and then somebody gets hurt. Somebody always gets hurt. There's always someone that gets hurt. And the thing that's different with spring ball versus fall camp is in the spring, like, you're not going to take any chances. Like, if Josh Fryer stubs his big toe, he's out. He's not going to practice. Or, if a guy, sprains his knee and it's like a 1 week thing, they'll probably hold him out for all of spring, not risk anything. So that's the thing that can throw a monkey wrench into your plans really quick, is when all of a sudden you got these great rotations. You're Justin Fry and the GA, and you've got these rotations written out. And okay, here's who's going to be where this day and this day. And then, like, in the first live drill you do inside running, and a guy hurts his knee or hurts his ankle or he gets rolled up or whatever, and he's out for the day, then everything kind of goes to crap. So it's funny. I'm looking forward to see who else they try at tackle. I'm looking forward to see how much Josh Fryer plays left tackle, just because, I think, again, I've said 5 million times, because I have really good sources on the O-line at Ohio State, they want Zen to win this left tackle job, but he's still got to go win it, but he's in the catbird seat. I think when they take the first snap, he's going to be the starting left tackle. But he's got to go own that thing, because there's guys who are going to be coming for that. And, and if none of the guys can get it done, then you got to put Donnie out there, because Donnie can do it. But, he's an NFL guard. And I think that his ability and what he's really good at is, being explosive and athletic. It translates to being a tackle. But he's just, he's also our best left guard. So it'll be really interesting to see who is where by like the third, fourth day, because that's sometimes when you'll throw in a new center, or you'll throw in, Donnie at left tackle and put Enoch at left guard, or you'll put, Matt Jones at center and put Enoch at right guard. So, Justin Fry has to experiment with all these and just figure out what's the best five, because personally, again, I've said it, but I'd put Donnie at left tackle. I'd put Enoch in at left guard, because Enoch started a game last year. Josh started a game last year. We've got 5 guys that started games, 4 guys that have started games. And plus, if you throw in Victor Cutler, we have 5, our transfer center. So it'd be interesting to see what he's got, because I watched his film. He seems light in terms of his lower body strength. So I'm not sure if he's going to be a great center. I know they want to try him at center, but there's a big jump when you're playing in the Big Ten. And when you're playing center, you got to have massive lower body strength compared to playing tackle. Tackle, you can get away with a little bit less, because you just have to be a good athlete to stay in front of smaller guys. But when you're playing in the middle, you're playing against guys that weigh 320 pounds, and they're going to try to bull rush you, so you got to be able to stop that. What other questions do we have? Running back room, Nevada. We're getting a lot of running back room questions. What are your thoughts right now? Because, again, like the running back room, it's going to be a hodgepodge again, just because Trey's probably not going to do anything. Evan Pryor's probably going to be limited. Mayan's not going to do anything. So I don't even know who to talk about. I guess Chip maybe, and Dallin and whoever. But your thoughts on the running back room, Nevada?
Well, first of all, my apologies for forgetting Evan Pryor when I was talking about how loaded our running back room was last podcast. I was like, man, I know I'm forgetting somebody, and then the good viewers reminded me that it was Evan Pryor. Yeah, our running back depth is silly. I mean, it's fact that you can take your 3 top guys out or whatever. You can take Mayan and Trey and Evan out of the running back room, and you still have a guy that rushed for 100 yards, or 2 guys that rushed for 100 yards in college, in Chip and Dallin, and Xavier Johnson, who will see time in that running back room, because they like what he can bring out of that. He's almost a true. We talked about the Percy Harvin type of position, but Xavier Johnson really kind of represents that. A guy that can be in the backfield, a guy can, do that orbit motion and take the ball, can, sets up a receiving matchup nightmare out of the backfield as well. So I think those will be the three that you'll see most. And I think it's interesting that they're keeping Chip at running back instead of moving him back to linebacker because when he came here to be a linebacker, and he came here to thought that was his path to the NFL because otherwise he could have just stayed at Arizona State and been a really good Pac-12 running back, but came here. Now he's back in the running back room, and I'm looking forward to seeing what. I know he's dropped a little bit of weight. He's down about 8 pounds. Dropped a little bit of weight. I think he should be a little bit quicker, a little bit more explosive, and can't wait to see him run the football.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually going to throw some film on because we did get a new offer yesterday. Hang on, I got to plug her in. We got a new tackle out of Texas offered, Michael Fasusi, which sounds like he's in the Colombo crime family, but he's actually not. And he's a really athletic kid. This kid, if you look on his Twitter, I'm going to pull this clip up when I see it later. He actually he front squats 405 for good depth, which is an incredibly impressive lift for a kid who's going to be a rising junior. Again, you got to remember, he's probably 260 here. I mean, he looks really light, but he's a really good athlete. Obviously, his hands can get better here, but he finishes his block. But I mean, this kid's going to get monumentally stronger given the fact that he's 15, 16 years old. He's only a sophomore here. So obviously, he's playing an unbalanced tackle. He's 56. Justin Fry offered him yesterday. Again, I think the kid's got a bright future. He's getting all the big dogs. He's getting A&M, Bama. They're all going to be coming for him as soon as you get that Ohio State offer. So, but yeah, I love these guys that are light, athletic, good feet, tall, 6'5.5". Again, I'll take it. Again, these Texas kids are great. This would be a huge get for us. He's a 2025, so we're not going to see him for a while if we get him. But I'm sure they're going to try to get him to camp, at least get him up here for a visit. But yeah, restocking this O-line room. I know a lot of people are worried about the O-line, the portal, the depth, but it's like I tell people, depth is an illusion. You just got to keep getting these guys. But he's a really light kid. Like I like it. He loves finishing his blocks. Like he always finishes until the guy's in the end zone or the guy's on the ground or whatever. So excited about him. Yeah, this is going to be a big camp season for Justin Fry. I mean, obviously, in the O-line, in 24, we're basically almost done. We got Mark Nave. We'll get the twins from St. Ed's, and then we'll probably get Jordan Seaton, maybe one other guy, and call it a day. But yeah, Nevada, give me your thoughts on how much like you worry about like O-line depth. Does it matter anymore? Just because we go over this a lot on the show, but I'm just telling you, you just got to keep reloading. And I think we're gonna have potentially a few guys transfer out after spring, and we're gonna have to go get a couple more guys in the portal. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I think it bears repeating, and something that we've said before, but I want to say again with emphasis, Justin Fry really likes Cutler a lot, and he likes him a lot. So, to my untrained eye, I'm not sure what I'm seeing. I mean, everybody looks pretty good to me, and I look at him and I think, well, sure, yeah, he can be good. But I'm telling you, Justin Fry likes the kid a lot, thinks he's going to play a lot, and I think this is going to be a good test of his evaluation skills. We'll see does this kid come in, sees some position on the line right away, play a lot, because I think that'll say a lot about Justin Fry, because he has not been shy about telling people that he thinks he stole one in the portal with this kid, and that's going to be certainly a focus for sure. And then secondly, yeah, I mean, look, we've got plenty of guys. I'm not worried about the offensive line at all. Like, I don't worry about it. Not even one little bit. The quarterback derby, the fact that the odds that both Devin Brown and Cal McCord eat the cadoodle and aren't good enough to be quarterbacks is a much higher probability than the offensive line being bad. So, you only got two guys there. One of them could get hurt and one could whatever, and then we'd have a real issue. Offensive line, we got lots of options. There's about 19 different paths to success, and I think Justin Fry's got them all covered, but keep an eye on the Cutler kid, because Justin's gone all in terms of his reputation that this kid can play, and I'm betting that he can, and I'm betting that that's a good eval. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that this kid's going to be, I think with the O-line, you're always going to have to take about 5 guys. Naples Buckeye put up a great thing that talked about the All-Pro and how there was, I think, not a single guy was higher than like 3 stars on the All-Pro team. I think Zach Martin was a 4-star, but like Trent Williams was a 3-star. Kelsey was a 0-star. I forget who the other two were, but it was like literally like, this guy was a tight end, this guy was a quarterback, this guy was like Lane Johnson was a quarterback, and they turned him into like a jumbo tackle, but he was like a 3-star tackle, and he's turned into a Hall of Famer tackle. Yakov, this is a great question. What does the lineman do practice if he has a non-contact jersey? It depends on the injury, honestly. Like when I had my knee injury in '05, I literally went inside and did the Stairmaster for like 45 minutes every day. I would just get on it and just try to keep my conditioning up because I couldn't practice. My knee was too wobbly because the one ligament was torn, the MCL was gone. So I couldn't practice and risk it because if someone landed on it, it would just completely, everything would tear. So I would put a sleeve on, a compression sleeve, and I did the Stairmaster just to keep my cardio up, keep my wind up. But yeah, it just really depends on the issue. A lot of guys that if you're out of practice and you can't practice at all, they put you over in the pit with Mickey, or it used to be Schlegel or Kenny Parker, whoever the assistant strength coach is, and they basically just beat you to death. You're doing curls and pull-ups and pushing a sled. Like it just depends on what your injury is. Obviously if you have a torn ACL, you're not going to push a sled, but the towel pulls, they'll figure out something to kind of break you off so that you get a good work day in as opposed to just laying in the training room all day. But again, it's totally dependent upon the injury that you have. That's a great question though. Nevada, this is a great one. Kevin, Ballard's role next year. Well, we thought he was gonna have a role in the bowl game, and I mean, I had people at practice telling me he had plays in for him, jet sweeps. I mean, spring ball. I mean, God, the one scrimmage. I mean, he caught a couple touchdowns, deep ones, 75-yard touchdowns. What do you think we can get out of Jayden Ballard next year in Nevada?
Well, like I said, I'm a big opher on predicting what he's going to do, given the hype that we'd heard about in bowl run-up. So I'm going to be a little bit cautious. But, I think it's important for all these guys because, I'll talk about the portal without being specific about anybody. Like, if you're a wide receiver and you don't make a move this spring and you see those incoming freshmen come in and you see Marvin and Emeka waiting in the wings, waiting to come back in the fall, there's going to be some guys on the move. So, I think it's a huge spring for everybody, and it's a huge spring for guys trying to determine their role at Ohio State, or maybe their role somewhere else. But as for Jayden, look, I think he's going to be terrific. I think he just needs the chance, and I think if he gets the chance, I think he'll do great things with it. He's a field stretcher. He's a guy that likes to take it over the top. That's what he was doing in bowl prep. That's what he's doing in practice. So I would imagine that would be kind of his role. Because when you think about it, even with Emeka and Julian and Marvin, none of those guys are like a true burner. They're not like a true, Marquez Valdez-Scantling or somebody that can go deep, on that 9 route. And Jayden's that guy. I mean, he can definitely do it. And I would imagine that would be his role come in the fall, and hopefully he fulfills it well.
Sorry, I apologize. I was on mute for a second. AZ King, appreciate you, my man. Thank you for being here. PJ Studio, appreciate you with the super chat. Kirk, what is the biggest hurdle for incoming linemen to get on the field in college? Is it playbook, physical strength, toughness, putting on weight? For me, I believe it depends on the person. For me, I had to add some weight. I was only 280. I think that the one thing you left out was technique, just because I had to learn how to pass set and vertical slide. And that's something that, it takes a lot of reps. It takes a lot of reps live versus, really good defensive ends. Because you can go out and vertical set all you want, on the practice field, like on air. But until you do it against a person, and they're bull rushing you or they're pass rushing you, you don't get that same feeling of resistance and having to redirect and that type of thing. So honestly, I think that the biggest hurdle for O linemen to get on the field is pass protection. I think obviously the playbook, you got to know the playbook. That's just kind of a prerequisite. You screen the kids pretty good to make sure that they're at least functional when it comes to learning a playbook, because when these kids come on visits now, they get quizzed on, can you remember plays? It's kind of like an NFL combine visit. Physical strength, sometimes if a kid is weak, but generally, most of the linemen have enough functional strength. Toughness is a great one. That's one that, I've seen kids kind of go belly up because they get on to Ohio State and they get beat so bad early on that they never recover. It's like they get just pulverized, and it's like they lose their mojo or their edge or whatever you want to call it. And again, I'd always tell some of these guys that were struggling with their confidence, I'm like, dude, just fake it till you make it, man. Because once you make it, you'll be straight. But like, you show up to Ohio State and you get just crushed a few days in a row. Because most of these kids, they've never seen guys like the ones they see at Ohio State, not even in high school. So, I think going to some of those bigger All-Star games like the Under Armour game and the Army All-American game, those help because then you get like a taste of what college is going to be like. So you're going against like real 4 and 5 star type guys. That's why I played in 2 All-Star games because that really upped the level of competition that I knew I was going to see. And plus, I got 2 starts under my belt playing right tackle, which is what I knew I was going to play at Ohio State. Putting weight on sometimes, that's why I think it took Nick Petit-Frere basically 3 years to be, a starter here. But I really think it's pass protection. I think that, I talked to Luke Montgomery and his dad, and I said, here's the deal. Work on pass protection. Because if you can pass block, you can play early. But the guys that, take forever to play are the guys that usually can't pass block. Especially in Ryan's offense, I would spend all of my time pass protecting. So, Nevada, do you have any thoughts on that as well?
Well, I guess I have a question for you, and
Sure.
I think you'd be a good person to ask this question too. Because when you talk about toughness, what to you is a tough player? Because I think toughness has a lot of different connotations to a lot of different people. Whether it be is it a guy that gets in a lot of fights? Is it a guy that finishes his blocks? Is it a guy that's mentally tough that can hang in there and process failure? But what does it mean to you when you say that a guy's tough? What does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, there's physical, there's mental toughness. Physical toughness is how much pain can you endure to stay on the field. Because you're going to get hurt, you're going to get bruised, you're going to get injured, you're going to get, all of the above. And there's some guys that, frankly, there's some guys that hope they get hurt and they hope that they get injured and they hope that they don't have to play. And, there's some guys that flat out just want to way out. Even at Ohio State, there's players that don't want to practice. They don't want to work. They don't want to bang. They want to get out of training camp, whatever. So, how often are you in the training room? How often are you hurt, missing practice, missing time, whatever? And again, it varies because I missed a lot of practice because I was injured, and I had a bad knee, bad shoulder. They would limit me some weeks just because I had such, bad injuries. It basically would just get inflamed the more I worked. But once I got to the point where I knew what I was doing and my technique was good, everything was just about getting to the game on Saturday. It wasn't about how bad can we kill the guy on Tuesday when he's, out there killing himself on Saturdays for us. So that's like a nice point in your football career is when you are at a program like Ohio State and they realize you're good enough to practice less and still start on Saturday and play really well. Because then they don't have to kill you. But, until you establish that you're good enough to play, they just got to keep putting you out there. And they got to kind of force you through some things. And that's something that is just part of the game. Because if guys are always hurt, then you never know how good they are. Mental toughness, I think, is 90% of the battle, though. Because, again, I'm telling you, these kids, they deal with millions of distractions. Things you can't even imagine. Grandma's sick, grandma dies, homesick, homie got locked up. There's just anything you can imagine. Girlfriend's pregnant, girlfriend broke up with him, failed a chemistry test. These kids deal with everything. And then, they got to go play on Saturday. And that's what I always tell people. I joke I don't care if if I fail a math exam, nobody knows. But if I fail against Penn State, everybody knows. It's like if it comes down to studying for an extra 2 hours or getting 2 more hours of sleep, I'm sleeping, and I'll just take the C on the test. And, I wasn't trying to be the doctor. And some guys can do it, but I couldn't. I always wanted to make sure my body was right. And, I got enough rest to make sure I was good to go. But, the mental toughness that comes with playing college football, and I think it's obviously even harder now because everyone has access to you because these guys all are idiots and they all have social media, which I think is stupid. If you're an active player and you have Instagram or Twitter, you're kind of asking for it because people are vicious, they're nasty. CJ wasn't on either of them, and they're like sending him Venmo hate messages because there's some people that are just deranged and they want to harass kids and harass coaches and players and their families, and but that's part of life in the big city. I mean, you sign up to play at Ohio State, that if you lose a game, people are going to be really upset. People are passionate, people, and I honestly think it's going to be even worse now that gambling's passed, because I think there's going to be people that, they drink too much, they gamble too much, we don't cover, we don't win, whatever it is. And I've always just felt like the people that are the most vicious and vile towards these kids are people that lose money gambling. So it'd be interesting to see how that works, with these kids and see what they deal with. But yeah, like with what Harry went through, I mean, it was a lot because of what people said to him on social media, and that's something that's terrible, but it's the reality of it. So you gotta have the mental toughness to block that out. How easily can you block out a bad play? If you give up a sack, you have a forced fumble, you give up a touchdown if you're a cornerback, you throw an interception. There's all these kind of dread plays that you have when you're a player, whatever your position is, like you have to be tough. Like if you're like a hockey goalie and you get shelled and you have like 9 goals, like, can you forget it? Or are you going to go out there and have the yips the next time you go out there? Like that's a real thing. So I don't know. I think that mental toughness, when you play football, play in front of the world, it's just so unbelievably important. And really that's something that some kids struggle with, and the guys that can do it at a high level, and it's just because they're exceptionally tough mentally. Is that good, Nevada?
Yeah, no, I love it. I just, my background, for part of my life was in baseball, where you're failing 70% of the time, and if you only fail 70% of the time, you go to the Hall of Fame. So it's being able to process that failure and deal with that. And I know that's different than football. So I thought your answer was super helpful to help me understand a little bit more about what you consider tough, coming from one of the toughest guys ever to play at Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like when you're a baseball player, shout out to Ryan Miller, Tennessee Volunteer, first at bat of his life in the SEC, playing for Tennessee last night, goes yard and ends the game. It was actually a 10-run rule game, but he had a 2-run shot, so shout out to him. But you're right, baseball guys have to be exceptionally mentally tough. Like I'm watching the show on Netflix about the PGA Tour. It's one of the best shows I've ever seen, and they detail all these guys. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out on Netflix. But Brooks Koepka, I mean, they follow him around, and his confidence is just completely shot. Like he went from being the phenom, best golfer in the world for 3 years, to I don't know if I can do it anymore. And once those demons kind of get in your head as an athlete, it gets scary, it gets hard. And that's something that these kids deal with, because again, these kids are used to being the man, and again, that's something that you just when you're a highly rated guy and you come in, they expect you to walk right in and basically produce the same type of statistics that you had in high school at Ohio State. And it's not always like that. You guys have to wait their turn. You guys, every player that redshirts gets depressed. That's just part of the game, because you're kind of left behind. You're kind of just, they kind of mothball you until next spring. And, you got to practice, you do scout team and all that, but that's a big fight, man. Cause like a lot of my freshmen that didn't make it in my class, it was because they went out and partied. They go out and party on the weekends. They'd fail a drug test on Monday, and then they're in the program, and it's a bad deal. Or they'd go home for the weekend and see the homies and toke, and then fail a drug test. I mean, that's just kind of what it was. And these guys have to be tough. And for some of these kids that are coming from like Florida, they're coming from Texas, like you got to be even tougher, because you can't go home. You don't have your mom an hour away or 2 hours away or in your city or whatever. So, it's always interesting. That's something that Urban is really hyped on, is just to stay on these guys, because you got to kind of look for the warning signs for who's homesick, who's not doing too hot, whatever. Guys, keep bringing those questions. Again, appreciate these. These are fantastic. But yeah, I've seen mental health just crush some of these kids, and it's a rough deal. I'm just scrolling up to see if there's more questions. Yeah, I agree. I think Evan Pryor could have a huge year. It'd be interesting to see how he's doing in his rehab. Yeah, Julian Fleming's still there. I love Lincoln Kienholz. Yeah, that's a kid. People keep bringing him up, but I think he's going to do really well. Nada, what are your thoughts on Lincoln?
I just think he's kind of the forgotten man. Like I said, we talk about the quarterback derby, and we talk a lot about 2024, about Jaden Davis and about other guys that are coming down the pike. And Lincoln's kind of a forgotten man, and I think that's kind of a good spot for him. I think it's kind of he can kind of develop in anonymity and without a lot of the pressure that comes with being a quarterback at Ohio State. And I love the kid. I mean, he is a legit 3-sport star. I mean, national type of ability in 3 sports, and he's fiery, and he can do it all. And when he gets out there, he's going to make something happen. I can tell you that, because he's not just going to sit there in the pocket and throw it and say that he wasn't brought to Ohio State to be a running back. I mean, he'll run through you, around you, by you, or whatever he needs to do to move the chains. And I can't wait to see him personally. I'm really really high on Lincoln, and I think he's gonna shock some people with his ability. Hope he gets a chance to do it at Ohio State.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, this is a question we kind of touched on, spring being big for the wideouts. Breaking out, I'm just going to say Carnell Tate, just because I think he's going to be running, with the 2s and 3s to start. And then, he'll be going against corners that he'll be able to dust. So it'll be close. I haven't heard anything about Court Williams. I know he was a captain last year, and I think he played a couple snaps last year, but I honestly haven't heard anything about him. I wouldn't count on him just because, it's not like our safety room isn't deeper. So yeah, I honestly haven't heard anything, so I'd be guessing, and I don't want to do that to you. This is a great question, Paul. Which climate is harder to play in? Hot, sweaty weather or cold, snow weather? By far, hot weather. By far. It's not even close. Hot weather, you feel like you're going to die. Cold weather, you can at least warm up a little bit. I played in some just exceptionally hot weather when I was in Miami with the Dolphins, and easily the hardest conditions that you can play in is just being down there in September, August, training camp, just because it's just so unbearably hot, and there are different heats. I know people like to joke there's a dry heat in Arizona and there's a humid heat in South Florida, but the South Florida heat is just different. It's like Louisiana. I had guys that played for the Saints tell me about how hot it was at their training camp. And because when I was in Chicago for my rookie year camp, and it was like temperate. It was probably 85 every day. And then, I got claimed on waivers. I went to the Dolphins, and it was like 98, except it was humid. And it felt like I was in, it was just awful. Just terrible. And then I was in Denver for my 3rd camp, and they, it would say it was like 98 degrees, 99 degrees, high altitude, and it would feel like it was 80. It felt like it was like 85. So I hate the heat personally. That's why I kind of like the state of Ohio versus Florida. Florida's great this time of year, but from March to almost October, it's just like unbearably hot. And so and there's good that comes with the heat, but when it comes to playing football, man, like cold temperatures, it just saves your life. I had Tony Pashos play for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He signed a contract there after he played for the Ravens, and he was there for like 2 years. He signed a big deal, and he said it literally, he's like being in Jacksonville for like camps and practices takes years off your life because it's so hot. And it's like, yeah, I think you're probably right about that. So, but that's a great question, Paul. I appreciate that. Let me see. What else we got? Are Chip and Dallin the only 2 running backs playing the screen? That's a great question, because I know that we've got a few walk-ons that are going to be there. I know Caden Saunders, I believe, I don't think he was hurt. Yeah, Chip Dallin, you got to include X. X caught that touchdown in the bowl game. He was playing running back on that play. So, yeah, it's going to be. But the thing about spring is that we throw the ball so much in the spring that it doesn't really matter, just because that's kind of what Ryan's MO is he wants to see who can pass protect on the offensive line and who can catch the ball and who can throw the ball. So, running backs are almost an afterthought in spring football. But yeah, there's going to be a skeleton crew back there. So, hey, if you're Dallin or you're Chip, you should be licking your chops, because you're going to be the starting running back running with the ones. So you got to take advantage of those reps. All right, Nevada, here's this is a good one to wrap the show on, just because I know that you have a hard stop. Speaking of dusting corners, Jordan Hancock versus Davison Igbinosun, however you say it.
So who am I picking?
Who are you picking?
Well, I mean, I'm picking the freshman All-American, all day long. I mean, Jordan has got all the ability in the world, but he hasn't, demonstrated the ability on the field yet. And to have Davison, a guy who was a freshman All-American, playing in the toughest conference in football, I mean, just such a enormous get. But I'm still high on Hancock. I know the coaches are still high on him. I know his fellow players are still high on him. But he's got to put it together, and he's got to do it. And look, we're going to need, other guys. We're going to need a third guy. So, if you've got Denzel Burke, and that's kind of your standard bearer for cornerbacks, that's a little scary. So having Davison, having Jordan, having Denzel, at least that gives us three functional guys, and then we can fill in with kind of those hybrid safety corner types, behind them. But no, if I'm picking between those two, I'm going with the guy who's already proved it, on the field, but still very high on Jordan Hancock, still very high on his potential and his abilities. He was injured a lot of last year, finally fully healthy this spring, and I think he's gonna show out. But Davison's a dog and going to be a 2-year starter here, so that's my guy.
Yeah, Davison's got to be the pick. I mean, he played last year, played in the SEC, played really well. They put on the full court press to get him, so. They knew what they needed, and they needed a guy that can lock down that other corner spot. So, and again, Jordan's got to stay healthy. I mean, he's got to I don't want to say he's got the upside of Marshawn, but Marshawn had, injury woes his first couple of years, and then finally put it all together his third year, and he obviously became, a Pro Bowler, unbelievable cornerback in the league. But Jordan's got to stay healthy, before he's in the conversation. And again, when you're coming into your third year, all of a sudden it's like, okay, let's go. It's go time. These guys all want to go pro. They all want to have the option to go pro after their third year. It's just some of these guys sharpen their pencils. They start training more seriously. They eat more seriously. They rehab. They cold tub. They cold plunge and hot tub and do more therapy to stay healthy. Again, it's always magical when these guys hit their draft eligibility or how they lock in substantially more. So, Dave, we're going to do your question last, and we're going to wrap this thing up. Appreciate you guys, as always. Like the show. And again, if you guys like the live, when we tape this thing, I'm telling you, click the bell on YouTube, because you guys will get the alert when we go live, so you'll never miss a show. But appreciate you guys. Nevada, what is more important for running back? Speed, wiggle, or vision?
Vision. Vision anticipation is everything for a running back. That's why a guy like Maurice Clarett was so terrific, because he wasn't particularly fast, or shifty, or but boy, he had that anticipation and vision that's kind of a God-given gift. The guys, you just know, some guys run to the light, and some guys manage to run to darkness every time and make big plays look small. And no, definitely vision's a thing. And like I said, it's when you see, it's kind of like pornography. You know it when you see it. And guys that have it, are great running backs, and I think we've got some guys that, I think that's probably what you say about Trey Henderson is Trey probably doesn't have great vision. I would say he's certainly got great ability, he's certainly got great speed, got great wiggle, but he doesn't have great vision. He doesn't have that great anticipation, and sometimes that can be an issue for him. But last year he was hobbled. This year he'll be hopefully 100% healthy, and he's so talented physically. He can even with limited vision, can be a first-team All-American type talent. So we'll see it on display this fall.
Yeah, I think that if speed was everything, then Master Teague would be an NFL Hall of Famer, because he ran a 4.3 flat or whatever he ran, and he had some of the greatest combine numbers ever, but his vision wasn't great, and he's a great kid, but that's just a deficiency that he had. So. The guys that could blend both of them are the guys that turn into Jim Brown, or they turn into Adrian Peterson, the guys that have vision and speed. But, for comparisons, there's a lot of guys that have amazing speed and no vision, and they can't make it in the NFL. But there's a lot of guys that also have amazing vision and just average speed 4-6 guys that can still carry the mail and be good in the NFL. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. So I think vision is just so critical. Being able to find the hole and kind of feel the defense and feel the blocking schemes when you're running the ball and making decisive cuts and getting positive yardage. So that is an art. That's something that is it's almost a genetic thing. Guys can train it, but some of us just feel that you naturally have. So that being said, Nevada, any final thoughts? We're going to wrap this thing up, get you out of here.
No, just leave with the famous quote: "The best ability is availability." Being available this spring is going to be huge for guys. Let's see who can be out there, who can keep it going all throughout the spring, because there's jobs up for grabs, and I can't wait. 2 weeks to go, 14 days. Let's count them down. Buckeye football's back. So thanks, everybody.
Appreciate you guys as always. We had a great show today. Thank you for the great questions, Dave, Ron, all you regulars. I mean, always, I love answering your questions. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys enjoy these live shows, click that bell. You get a little alert on your phone. It'll say when we're going live. Generally about this time. Sometimes we try to go earlier if there's a basketball game going on. Like tomorrow we'll try to go at 6, get an hour done before the basketball game starts. But we love your feedback on the show. Comment down below. Shout out where you're from. I love when you shout out where you guys are from. Comment, who do you want to see step up in spring ball? Who are you most excited to see in spring ball? Give me some names. I want to hear a guy on offense, guy on defense from everybody. Write that down in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate you guys as always doing that. That's a huge help for us. If you guys have not subscribed to our podcast on Apple or Google, please do on both. Those both add up to us. They're huge for us. So appreciate you guys doing that. Leave us a 5-star review. Again, we love seeing you guys, seeing the regulars pop in here. It's always a blast chatting with you. We missed Sue tonight. No Sue tonight. So you got to give her some stuff about that when we do our show tomorrow. So hope you guys are ready to have a good night tonight. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks.